Hey y'all, hope you're having a good week. Alex Kirshner back here again to pick some more college football games for Odds Checker in week 5 now. Wow, the season is moving with rapid speed as it always does. We've had a pretty successful start to the year, really good week last week. So we're gonna stick with the process, trust it, and see if the bakery can be open again here. I want to start in the Big 12 this week with a mistake that I made by not getting a line at a number that is as good at what you can get it at. I have Oklahoma as a 9.5 point favorite this week, visiting Iowa State. That line has moved against me in the last couple of days. You can now get that at Oklahoma -7, just a mere touchdown. I wish I had waited to take, obviously a much more favorable bet on Oklahoma at just a touchdown as opposed to at 9 points, at 9.5 points. The SP Plus projection system sees this as an 11-point game, so I think I'm good anyway. I like where I still like the bet, but I see this game as potentially being a lot more lopsided than just a touchdown. I think Oklahoma is going to be pissed off after losing to Kansas State last week in a game where they had so many opportunities to do things better and not have that outcome. But more than that, I don't love Iowa State's defense. I do like the pass rush a lot, but I'm not entirely sure about the coverage. I don't think that this is a great tackling defense, and these are not great traits when you are playing against a very upset Oklahoma that has had a week to stew over making two or three too many mistakes in a game against Kansas State. I don't think Spencer Rattler is going to throw 3 picks again. They weren't all his fault last week, but 2 of them were. And I suspect that Lincoln Riley, who is as good a quarterback developer as there is in college football, will work with his young quarterback and get him back on track for a better week this week. So I just think Oklahoma is going to be sharper. And I think that given that I think Oklahoma is going to be sharp, I would take them at a touchdown against pretty much anybody in the Big 12, including Texas, and certainly at Iowa State, even on the road. In the ACC, I have Virginia Tech as a 10.5 point favorite against Duke. That is one of my favorite picks of this week. I think that Duke, and all due respect to David Cutcliffe, who has been doing this at a pretty high level for a long time, but Duke is terrible, guys. They're just really not good. It's been ugly through 3 weeks. I just do not see a way out of this for them. I don't think they're going to win more than 2 or 3 games. The biggest problem is the offense, which is one of the handful of worst offenses anywhere in FBS. And this is just a team with very little going for it. I like Chase Bryce, the Clemson transfer who plays quarterback for Duke, but he has no time because the offensive line is basically paper mache, and defenders are in the backfield very quickly all the time. And even when he's not under pressure, he's thrown 2 touchdowns and 3 picks when he's not under pressure through the first 3 weeks of the season. So I just don't think there's a lot here. I don't think it's very good on the other side. Virginia Tech was missing 20-plus players and the defensive coordinator last week because of COVID protocol reasons against NC State. Still blew them out. I don't think NC State's good, but I do think Virginia Tech looks more like the team we saw at the end of last year than the beginning. So I like Tech to win this game comfortably. I think I'd take it at anything less than 2 touchdowns, and I'm very happy about it at just 10.5 points. Staying in the ACC for a minute, and then we're going to jump actually back to the Big 12. I have Pitt at home against North Carolina as a 13-point favorite. This is one where the line has moved in my favor, where it's now a 2-touchdown spread. I think I would still do that. I would think a little bit harder about it because obviously you're kind of right on that key number where a push is, in play. It's in play at any whole number, but particularly at a number like 14. But I just think Pitt's defense is great. I think it's one of the best defenses in the country. I think that Pitt's defense is especially strong against the run, which should cancel out the only thing that NC State has really been good at through a couple of weeks against Wake Forest and Virginia Tech, and that's running the ball for 4.5 yards to carry. I think NC State has to throw to win in this game, and that is a matchup that does not favor them at all with Pitt's pass rush and secondary. So I don't think NC State scores enough to stay close. I think Pitt's offense has been bad, but just the thing that an offense like that needs is to go up against a defense like NC State's. And for that reason, I feel really good about Pitt at -13. I'd consider it at 14. I don't think I would do anything more than 2 touchdowns, but feeling pretty good about having it at that number. Pitt's longtime rival, currently on pause, but West Virginia is hosting Baylor, and this is just, hour and a half down the road, Morgantown from Heinz Field, where Pitt will be playing. I have Baylor as a 3-point favorite in this game. I have some questions about Baylor. They did not look awesome against Kansas, though they did win comfortably. A lot of new faces here, starting at head coach, but By the same token, there's a good bit back on offense. This is a team that, nearly made the college football playoff last year. I mean, kind of snuck up on people in this regard, but was a quarter away against Oklahoma from playing in the playoff last year and has, a lot of familiarity. They're not on the coaching staff, but particularly on the offense and in a few key spots on defense. And they're playing a West Virginia team that has looked pretty lifeless on offense. So, until I see a bit more from West Virginia, I'm going to feel pretty good about, at just a field goal, a Baylor team that I don't think is as good as it was last year, but that hasn't given me a big reason yet to think that it's not a very strong program. Sticking in the Big 12 for just another minute here, TCU is visiting Texas. I have the under in this game at 61.5. I don't think TCU is going to do much of scoring in this game. They did get 34 on Iowa State last week, but the last 6 were on a meaningless Hail Mary right at the buzzer. I shouldn't say meaningless because it was not meaningless to everyone. It was not meaningless to me as someone who had TCU as a 3-point dog in that game. But I just am not really sure what Gary Patterson is doing at quarterback. And I don't mean that as an insult to him or his quarterbacks, but it just doesn't seem like TCU has like a settled plan there between Matthew Downing and Max Duggan. And I at the same time, I've seen, you watched Texas play against Texas Tech last weekend, and you think Texas is just going to be involved in score fests for the entire year. I think that Texas will score, but I'm not sure that Texas's defense is as bad as it looked against Texas Tech. I don't think that TCU's offense is going to play the kind of wide open pace of game that Texas Tech plays. So I think they're going to be fewer points. And, if this game was something like 35-24 for Texas, which seems eminently reasonable to me, then that would be an under and leave us in pretty good shape. I also want to say that I don't think, that Texas's tackling is nearly as bad as what it looked like last week, because it did look extremely pitiful in Lubbock against the Red Raiders. The last game of the night, and therefore the last game that I'll pick for you on this video, in the ACC, Virginia as a 28.5-point dog visiting the Clemson Tigers. I think that, this number has moved in my favor by a half point. It's now on 28. It's a similar situation to what we just talked about with NC State and Pitt. I think I'd still take it at 28 because and this is just a personal thing for me, I don't worry too much if the number moves like to right on a key number, because that creates more of a push risk, but it doesn't create a significantly higher risk of actually losing your money. And I understand that there'd be a mathematical case against that obviously, the increased push risk, I'm sure a quant would tell me that makes it a big deal. I would think about it at 28. I'm very happy with it at 28.5. We know how Clemson behaves when Clemson is winning big against an overmatched conference opponent. I assume Clemson will be up a ways at halftime and probably more in the third quarter. At that point, Trevor Lawrence probably comes out of the game if things are really ugly. We know Dabo Swinney likes to use damn near his entire roster and sort of let the foot off the gas in the closing moments of games. We saw that certainly in the first game of the season against Wake Forest. I wound up being on the wrong side of that bet as someone who had Clemson to cover that night. And I'm going to try to be on the right side of it here. I think UVA's run defense is very strong, and that's the kind of thing that can succeed in speeding up a game and keeping the clock moving late in the blowout. This defense for Virginia was very good against a Duke team that we just mentioned was bad. I don't think they're going to hold Clemson to 1.5 yards a carry like they did to Duke. But I do think they're going to be able to do enough to lose by more like 3 touchdowns, maybe 4, than to not be able to cover a 28.5-point spread. So hopefully the Hoos can return that faith and get us a cover at 28.5. Thanks so much for bearing with me, for hearing out my picks. I hope you have wonderful luck this weekend in whatever games you're playing. And we will see you back here next week for another day at the bakery.